its differences are what makes it so unique, right? Like, and the fact that it's growing so much and so popular everywhere. It's not like, for example, just look at basketball. Like, it's huge here and it's huge in Europe, and you don't really hear about it anywhere else. Like, I mean, people obviously play it, but football is huge everywhere. Like, there's fans all over the world for every team, and it's just so much bigger than people realize. And I think the US now, like you said, it's in its infancy. It's waking up to that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back again with another episode of Box to Box. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jose Tejas. I'm the primary host of the show. And as usual, I'm joined by a very special guest. Today is no exception. We have from one of the biggest, probably Liverpool channels that's here stateside, from Nothing But Reds on YouTube. We have Kyle in the studio today recording with us. Excited that he's here. Kyle, how are you, my man?
Good, man. You're gassing me up with that intro, but yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. No, I think I have to, dude. In all honesty, man, coming across these individual club-focused channels, I've come across a ton this past year, and it's not even just the Prem, which of course the biggest league in the world. There's so many now that are popping up here for like MLS clubs. You see a couple here and there for La Liga clubs, past Barca and Real Madrid. I always find it interesting to kind of see how fans on this side of the world perceive all the craziness that goes on in some of the biggest clubs in the world. Dude, your channel, massively informative, massively entertaining. I really think it's a privilege to have you here. But look, man, I don't want to waste any more time. I think our audience is excited to learn more about you, your journey as a fan, as a content creator. We'll jump into all of it. But before we do, the question I ask every guest on this show, Kyle, who are you today?
Well, I'm much different than I was yesterday and the day before that. I'm not a complete product. I think I'm a work in progress, as we all are. Me personally, the channel's helped me grow a lot. I think the person I am today is honestly, it's kind of corny now that I'm doing a podcast about my channel, but I honestly think it's made me into a person that is just very hardworking, eye on the prize, um, long-term kind of person. And this doesn't just translate to YouTube. I feel like I'm someone who's very driven in all aspects of my life. Um, but that doesn't mean that I reach a certain point of dedication and then that goes away. I mean, I just bought a house. My fiance and I are getting married in November. Big things are happening. And, I'm kind of bringing all these things that I developed when I was single and, younger with me. And, you know, I'm proud of the person I've become today. I just feel like I'm a very relatable person. I'm nothing special. I'm very average, but I think all of us are average. Is just how you approach life that allows you to do more than the average person. So that's how I view myself right now, and hopefully that's deep enough. But yeah,
Dude, that's definitely deep enough. And I will say this, man, that response, I think, regardless of your walk of life, it probably resonates with somebody, right? Or everybody, I should say.
right.
In some form or fashion, we're all trying to figure it out. We're, in a lot of different ways, we all consider ourselves to be either stellar or average, depending on what we're talking about. But I will say this, man, from a content perspective, I wouldn't consider you anything close to average. I consider you very much above average. I think you're doing great things, man. I think the American take on any one given club that's kind of abroad, overseas, and one that's as massive as Liverpool. I think there's only so much. I've always believed there's only so much entertainment or informative value that a stateside fan could bring to fans
Right.
of that club. But dude, you do it in a massive way. We're going to talk all about it today. Again, man, excited that you're here. So let's jump into it. How we typically do this here, box to box, everybody already knows. We like to start at the beginning of the journey, as early on as you're willing to kind of bring us into it. For me, the earliest memories of soccer were always from a player's perspective. That was kind of my individual journey, but everybody's different, right? We've had pro players
Right.
on the pod, we've had content creators, coaches. Everyone starts at almost a completely different walk of life, and I imagine that's the case for you as well. So bring us into the fold, man. I mean, where did it all kind of kick off for you? Was it influenced by friends, family, television, anything in between? How did it all start? Where did the Liverpool fandom come from?
Sure. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. It's different for everybody. For me, I'm really close with my older cousin, and my cousin actually was a Liverpool fan before I was. His friend got him into it, and he got me into it. And it's really nothing special. I played soccer in college just as like an intramural thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, he had just said, like, it was Raheem Sterling, believe it or not. He just said, "Hey, dude, you got to look up this 17-year-old kid. He's balling at 17. He's like the star of Liverpool." I didn't know anything about soccer, dude. I didn't football, soccer, MLS, Premier League. I almost hated it just because of the sports I grew up playing, and I think that's the whole irony in this. So once who I looked up to, told me that he was interested in it, he was like, "Hey, check it out." That was kind of like the opening of the door. Like, hey, someone I admire is into it. Let me, give it a chance. So I started following Liverpool, and then, dude, it was just like just a whole everything about it: documentaries, player interviews, games, highlights, history, everything about the team. I just immediately fell in love with. And this was back in probably like 2012, 2013. So it's been about a decade now that I've been following the team. And I was following the team for about 5 years before I even thought about doing any content with it. And that's because it was mainly just a comfort thing, right? Like being from the States, like we don't really, you have to like learn how things are over there because MLS is much different than the Premier League. And you're almost stepping into a different realm. At least that's what I felt like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't, I felt in most things, I felt confident. In this, I didn't. So I just wanted to learn about it. And it's just love, dude. I feel like a lot of people know what I mean when I say that in terms of just like what teams you support. It just like doesn't matter, man. Liverpool just they did something different for me than any other club or any other sport for real. So that's what ultimately led me into following them, creating content, and bringing me here today.
Dude,
So
that's awesome, man. I love
yeah,
that. And what's crazy about it is like friends and family are impactful in ways that we never really see until someone asks the question, right? It's like, you know
exactly.
what? I didn't even realize before, but yeah, this person got me into it. And it was really just kind of, scratching the itch. From there, I went down this rabbit hole and unlocked so many doors and so many stories that I didn't realize existed beyond what everybody talks about today. Man, I feel like I'm almost hearing my own thoughts as I think about, Barcelona. For me, it was a little bit differently. It was like generational. My grandparents supported Barcelona, and so I didn't have a choice. Like coming out the womb, like that.
Right.
That's
But you
exactly
still
how I.
had that opening. Like you're like, "Oh, my like you had the choice. You could have been like, I'm not going to support soccer. I'm just not going to watch it. Like you guys like it, that's great. But you were almost bred into it. And so that's a different way to get into it. It's really cool that way because
Yeah.
then you learn from your family, right? Like me kind of did it on my own in a way, but you're absolutely right. And that's pretty cool that your grandparents supported it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. It's soccer's it's a lifelong passion in our family, generationally, and so for me and any other club that I support, right, whether it be Arsenal or here locally with FC Dallas, like those are all loves that I've kind of brought to the table myself, just doing digging like you did on your own. Why? So I'm really curious because there are so many massive clubs, especially in the
Sure.
Premier League, man.
Right.
You pick any era of time, and there's at one point Newcastle had their run, right? At one point, I mean, look at
Right.
City now. City's never been really that relevant, and now they're arguably, at least according to fans, they're the biggest club in Manchester. So like, there's so much, right, that you could kind of unpack when it comes to any given club. Why Liverpool? I mean, I'm sure, right? Your cousin helped, right? But as you dug into their history, you had to have discovered the rivalries with Manchester United. You had to have discovered other clubs that were maybe had more illustrious histories in terms of trophies or anything else. And I know here in America, man, what do they call us? Glory hunters, at least in the UK, right?
That's
We're
exactly what I was about to get into. That's exact so, for me, if once you choose a team, right? Like it's one thing you have the defense. You're like, oh, my grandparents are fans of it. Oh, or my dad that took me to my first game, and you're in, right? And they're like, oh, okay, you're good. You will approve of it. But when you're going on your own and you're trying to find a team of a new sport, you really got to be careful with who you pick because especially if you make content, because then you're gonna get called that, right? So the way I approached it, and this is it kind of Liverpool was already chosen before I chose it, if that makes sense. But
sure.
when I started learning about them, I could have said no. But I thought to myself at the time, like Liverpool, like they were good. They had good history, but they weren't good at the time. So I was like, all right, so there's my in. Like I'm not going, bandwagoning, right? They didn't just win something. I'm good to go. So there's Liverpool. But then when you learn about all the other stuff, the fans, the cop. Um, the biggest thing to me, this is kind of corny, but they sing over there, man. All the fans sing. Like here we have like chants and stuff, and there's no atmosphere. I mean, there is. Don't get me wrong. Like when you go to a playoff game or something, there's atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the same. And I think for me, that was ultimately the final like hook. Like getting goosebumps listening to "You'll Never Walk Alone,"
Oh
uh,
man.
regardless if that's cliche or not. But I was just like, how can I not like this club? You know? And not only that, but just everyone, all the interviews I watched, everything about the club, the family aspect of it, kind of resonated with the fact that, hey, my family introduced me to this. It seems like a very down to earth club. They're not big spenders. Like, you know what I mean? Everything about it was just like, this is a good club to support. There's nothing unethical about the club. There's nothing mainstream, if you will. I mean, of course, you always get mainstream after a while, especially when you're a big brand.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, Liverpool's just the club where it's all passion based. It's all history based.
Yeah, and and you mentioned right there the culture, right? The
Right.
culture that I think Liverpool's helped us to establish. Even when you think about the football culture that exists overseas, Liverpool still stands out. There's a reason this is Anfield is a thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to play and win there. The fans are a different breed. Merseyside probably just has to be the split between Liverpool and Everton fans just has to be insane. And I think
It
that you
splits
know that
families, man. And that's what's
dude,
crazy. Same
yeah.
houses, you know?
It's actually wild when you think about it, right? I can only imagine, right? If it'd probably be the same in my own household when I think about like Barcelona and if we had a Real Madrid fan in my family, I don't know, it would almost be war in the household. But at the end of the day, right, that has to be how it is, right, overseas. And so I don't know, man. I think that's I love the rationale for why you chose the club. I think you did pick him at an interesting time, right? When Raheem Sterling was there, you could argue him, Stevie G, and Luis Suarez
Suarez.
were probably their
Oh,
best player, and
yeah.
that's it. They don't really have like a ton of other weapons to rely upon.
Right, and the timing is actually kind of impeccable because I got lucky as hell. I mean, when you think about it, like when I chose them and then you get Jurgen Klopp in, oh my god. I
Yeah,
mean, I feel like I'm peaking as a Liverpool fan. I mean, you never know, but I don't know if it's all downhill from here. Let's hope not, but it's
no,
pretty damn good right now. So, you're right. The timing of it was good, and then once you get into it, we got a little bit fortunate. And but it's cyclical, man, just like Barcelona, you know?
yeah.
I mean, Barcelona ran the world for 10 years. And,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
now look at us, man. You know, it's crazy how far you fall off, and like I think you
yeah.
know, it's I think it's cyclical. Every club goes through it. You know, look at City fans 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, they never thought they'd be here, and
No.
it is what it is, right? Same thing can be said for United. So everything moves in cycles, and I love that you were able to enter this space at a pretty I don't want to say a pretty interesting time. I don't want to say, you know, it was something that you took advantage of, but it was an interesting time to get involved. And then you wanted to create content. So that's something I'm personally very curious about. It's one thing to just dive in, go down a rabbit hole. I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn everything through and through. I'm going to learn all the songs. I'm going to learn who the best players were in history. I'm going to make sure I understand this club as a true fan.
Yeah.
But then to report on the club as a fan who's deep in, that's a different ball game. For a club as big as Liverpool, you're basically reporting on things every 24 to 48 hours, I would imagine, if not maybe a little bit more spread out than that. But it's there's always, you know, transfer rumors. There's always something going on with a club that big. Like, how did you mentally prepare to produce that much content and take on a club as big as Liverpool from a channel perspective?
That's a good question because the mental aspect, it's a lot of mental fortitude and growing, right? I mentioned that at the very beginning, just growing. So, obviously, the biggest thing when you first start creating content is you get feedback, right? Not only from friends and family, but from people you don't even know. Um, so, that was a big adjustment. But diving into the content itself, I honestly think it really wasn't that difficult for me. I had listened to the classic, you know, Liverpool fan channels, the Redmen TVs, and I
Mhm.
actually started following Anfield Agenda for a while. And those were like the two big ones, right? Because YouTube is still pretty young when you think about it. I mean, like 2005 is when YouTube came out. And like, you know, there's these waves of different types of content that come through the platform. And fan channels was relatively new at the time. And so I thought to myself, like, dude, I could do this, you know? And at the time I was in school. Um, And so I had some free time and I wanted to do something. Like I wasn't really working just because of classes and things like that. And so I thought, hey, let me just try this out. I'd been a good public speaker my whole life. I was good at presenting and I have a creative side to me and I just like to do things. Like I can't be stagnant. I got to do something. So all of that combined, jumping into creating content was fun almost for me. Now I look back now and I always leave the videos public just because, but the first pieces of content I made are just rough, dude. And I know you can relate to this. And
Definitely.
there's so many people out there like almost self-help YouTube guys. Like Nick Nimmin was the one I followed. I know everyone follows a different guy, but everyone in the community just kind of supports you. There's obviously the people who comment and give you that feedback, but because I was a fan and because I was confident and because I'm, like you said, reporting on the team and kind of giving my opinion at the same time, I saw a market for it, given I was an American and given I was already in the space on YouTube looking like, okay, there's this guy from Ireland, there's these guys from Liverpool, and of course, there's other guys all over the place. I didn't see an American one. And I
Hmm.
was like, holy crap. Like, everyone has those moments where they see a commercial of an invention. They're like, I thought of that last week. What the hell? So, like, for me, I was like, I need to capitalize on this. And lo and behold, it's a process, it's a grind. And I learned as I went, but I had fun. I didn't realize how much fun I would have at the beginning. And collaborating with other small channels like we're doing now. Like this was the fun part of it. And then once you initially start growing and getting some traction, that's when you're like, I don't know, man, it's just satisfying. Like you work for something and you achieve it. Obviously, we have different tiers of achievement. For me, the biggest thing was 100 subscribers. Like if I could get that, then I've met my goal. And I
Hmm.
look back now and I'm just like, man, I never thought I would have done anything like this. So it's just falling in love with the process, right? Every time I make content, I'm trying to do something better. I'm trying to add something new without going overboard. And over time, if you watch my content, it grows, things change. And I think that's what YouTube's all about: growing, changing, adapting, and finding new ways to make content because people love it. I'm a YouTube nut. I'm sure you are too. I mean, people love it. That's pretty much it, man.
It's television now. I mean, it has to be,
That's
right?
I think it's better, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
yeah, it's fan made, and I had this theory, man, that and first off, right, you mentioned having 100 subscribers, guys. For those who aren't following Nothing But Reds, he's nearly at 10,000 now, so significantly surpassed that initial goal. I think you probably do raise the level for yourself, right, every year or so often, looking
Exactly. Yeah.
at
Setting
new
goals
ways
is a
to hit
big
the
part of it.
horizon. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I'm sure you do the same thing. I mean, you got to
Mhm.
have goals if you're working towards something. I think it's very helpful, actually.
Yeah, 100%, bro. But evolve, right? Your content is consistently getting better, and as a natural byproduct of that, you're producing more content now than I think you ever produced. Even with all of the life responsibilities that you have coming up. Again, you mentioned before you're getting married. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think it's man, it's honestly refreshing kind of to hear another creator go through some of the mental hurdles that I myself have had to go through. We've talked about it with a couple other creators who've been on this show. Being a fan of this game, producing content that's meant for a club that's overseas abroad as an American is not an easy thing to do. I think
No.
automatically you're discounted because you don't live there. You're not local to the clubs. But I think, me watching your content personally, I mean, I've seen Anfield Agenda, I've seen Redmond TV. I think you have your own unique spin to it, but the value and the quality of the content is there. I think for anybody to watch, anybody who wants to continue to keep up with Liverpool FC from an American perspective, your channel's almost 100% perfect for that person. So
And
there's
dude,
there's
I
there's a
appreciate
lot
that.
there.
I
Yeah.
really do. Yeah, and you mentioned the mental hurdles. I know we'll probably go on to something else, but I just really want to like say that it is tough. Like, and when you set goal, like honestly, if you put out one good video, it's almost like playing golf. I don't know if you play golf, but you have one good shot in golf. The whole round can be just ass. You have one good shot and it keeps you coming back.
Yeah.
And YouTube's kind of the same way. Like, not every piece of content's going to be good and not every piece of content people are going to watch. And you're thinking to yourself like, why? Like I put so much effort into this and no one's watching it. Like I spent 3 times the amount of time on this video, and the video that I spent 2 minutes on got this many more views. It it is just mind bending sometimes, but I think that's what makes us stronger. And if you're able to stick with it, to anyone watching this who like has aspirations of like eventually growing a channel or even just starting a channel, consistency and just blocking out the noise, I feel like are the most important things, because naturally the content will get better. It doesn't matter how you start, naturally it will get better. So if you're just able to block it out and keep going, I feel like that's the key, man. I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree, but
I would agree. You know what? It's crazy you bring that up. I normally make that a point on this show, right? You know, for aspiring content creators or just fans who think like, you know what, there's a gap in the soccer content market because it's still growing here in the States. I want to
right.
do that. I think I could do that. But so many people sit on it for how long? Months, a year, right?
Right.
And never do anything. I think, you know, get up, take action. It's not going to be good at first. I'll tell you that right now. You're not going to get very many views, if any, and it's not going to be good. But you're going to get comfortable at least a little bit, more comfortable than you were
Right.
previously, being on camera, understanding how to lay out whatever content you're putting together. And over time, if you're consistent with it, like you said, it's just going to get better. I can't tell you right now. I probably couldn't even go back and watch my very first videos because they're so cringe. Like it's just like it's so bad. Like I don't want to go back.
Terrible, man. I'm not saying yours are terrible. I'm saying in
Yeah.
general, everyone's first videos, I like, oh my God. They're terrible. Yeah.
But with that said, you know, I think it's for growth. If you're interested in growing and evolving as a creator, as someone who wants to be able to deliver high quality content one day, it's just part of the process. You can't get around it. If you even, I always say this a lot, even in my own work outside of content. If I get better, just 1% better every single day, every time I turn on the camera and hit record, dude, by the end of the year, that's 300+% that I've improved year over year. And at that level of consistency is just going to raise my game, right? So that's mentally how I always think about it. And I imagine that's somewhat what goes through your mind too.
That's exactly right. And you're right. It goes, especially in the workplace. I mean, I feel like people approach work as, not everyone, but some people approach it as a burden.
Yeah.
And that is another hurdle that content creators will run into. There have been several times throughout, the 4 or 5 years I've been doing this now, that I've thought about quitting. And it could be something as little as a comment. It could be something as little as a video that I put a lot of work into, just bombed, terrible,
Mm.
like no reception. Um, but like I said, it just takes one, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing this because of this. Like, I like other people coming and sharing their thoughts about the video, like sharing in this community that you've created. And that's essentially what you're doing, is you're creating your own community, which is, I mean, frankly, it's addicting. Like it's almost like a social media in a sense.
Yeah. And 100% is, man. Community, I think, you know, the more you can make it that, it's also more enjoyable for yourself as a creator.
Right,
I think
exactly.
you were there to meet friends, meet new people, get out there, out of your comfort zone. And plus, you know, for so many of us who launched content creation careers, let's say during COVID, for example, you know, this can be a very isolating type of hobby where
Yes.
you're just by yourself. You don't really have too much going on. You kind of rely upon that online community you've built for yourself. So I agree wholeheartedly, man. There's a lot there, I think, for our audience with this, with just your last few minutes alone, how you've talked about those mental hurdles for you know, users to kind of pick apart, chew on, and hopefully use for their own aspiring content creation careers. But again, man, we'll see. I do want to pivot a little bit over to, well, I should say back over to your Liverpool fandom. But I'm really kind of curious, man, because when I meet anybody stateside who supports a big club or just supports clubs overseas, right? Because there's so many, you know, diehard American fans who only support U.S. men's national team or only Major
Sure.
League Soccer,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I'm not going to knock anybody for that. I like to support as many leagues as possible, and of course my local club. But I think it's always interesting to meet someone who's supporting a club abroad and try to understand how that's translated to their community building efforts here in the States. I'm really curious, man, based on where you live and just how your Liverpool fandom has grown. Has some of that translated IRL? Like, have you been able to go out, meet other Liverpool fans here in the States, and really kind of deepen your fandom that way? What's that process been like for you?
Somewhat, somewhat. To be honest with you, more so other fans of other
Okay.
teams. Because obviously it's growing, right? So I
Hmm.
meet, believe it or not, I meet more Tottenham fans than anything.
Oh God.
Um, and honestly, Tottenham's one of those clubs where I'm almost like, okay, I see why you did that there. Like a
Yeah.
lot of potential, no execution, no bandwagon threats. Like obviously, good. There you go. But yeah, there's tons of fan clubs around here. I personally, I haven't submerged or immersed myself in that, I guess you could say. Here, I don't really have anyone that I watch it with. Again,
Yeah.
it's not like a football game. It's or like a
American football
basketball
game.
game playoff. Like it's not. Like you said, it's a different country, and so it's very few and far between that you find people that you can create a community with, and that's why there are fan clubs and things like that. Locally, I don't know of any. I think there's Premier League bars and things like that. But I'm not a huge bar guy. I'm not a huge scene like going out and watching sports. I like to be locked in my
Yeah.
house, locked
Mhm.
in, yelling at the screen, whatever I need to do. Right. If I watch it in public, it's just bad. It's bad news.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for other content creators, it does help because I know there's a lot of different areas that people make content in where they create community events. They
Yeah.
do meetups and things like that. And that is, I think, one downside actually of it is the fact that I have to go overseas. Well, I mean, I don't have to, but if I wanted to do something around the club, unless they came here for preseason or whatever, I'd have to go over there. I'd have to make content over there, which would be, I don't want to say an inconvenience, but it's a lot of work to do that. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So in that sense, now that I'm talking about it, it is something that I have thought about doing, creating a community over there because a lot of the viewership that I have, probably more than 75% is in the UK. Um, but for the ones that are here, I think they're actually more engaged because it's an American channel, if
I
that makes
agree.
sense.
No, it
Um,
does wholeheartedly. Yeah,
so
yeah. I think it's I when you said those numbers too, like 70+% UK, just because of I think that says more about the quality of the coverage that you bring, right? Because if you're
I hope
if
so.
because think about it, right? There's got to be so many English specific content creators who cover this massive club over now in this day and age, 2023, that they kind of probably have their pick of the litter. I know for me, even as a stateside Barcelona fan, there's a couple guys based in North America that I will follow and tune into for the updates, but for the most part, like the biggest ones are all Spanish, right? And so it's
Sure.
just kind of how it goes. But if you're getting that much of your viewership, from that part of the world natively, I think it just says that the quality of your content's right there with everybody else's. And so, and of course, you have to have some stateside support just because you're an American. But I think to go even a step further to my last question, because I'm really curious about this, I think soccer's growing at a rate that many didn't really see coming. I think we're still in its infancy. Don't get me wrong. I think we finally
Very early.
surpassed very early. We finally surpassed top. I think we're now in top four with hockey technically
I
by
think
the
we're fourth. Yeah,
numbers.
you're right.
Yeah, kind of bowing out. So baseball to me is the next one up. I think we're going to surpass MLB 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So I think, there's potential. I don't know if we ever touch NBA or NFL, but at the end of the day, like it's growing, it's getting there. But I do think that while Major League Soccer has its own unique role to play, you have to give a lot of credit to the massive clubs overseas, right? And the culture they're trying to instill here. Do you think, I don't know, you mentioned earlier that you kind of wish some of that culture that footy has overseas could come to the States, right? Like we don't have anything like that here. There are chants, there are people yelling a lot at any
Yeah,
given sports game. Doesn't really matter what sport we're talking about, but there's not groups of fans singing in unison. There's not, it's almost romantic, like to think
ex-
about,
perfect word. Yes.
everything overseas and the culture that exists over there. I don't know. Do you ever think any sport in the States, much less soccer, but any sport in the States could get to that point, like just having that type of culture when we talk about supporting the beautiful game over here?
It's actually a good question. Now, to be fair, I do see us trying. I do see, I mean, if you watch MLS games, you'll see like the section, right? Like almost
Yeah.
like a student section at college games. That's essentially what it is. And that's rare in pro sports just because the commercial side of it, there's no section. Like it's just fans. All right.
Yep.
Especially when you get to big teams, there's no consistency in that aspect. But with MLS, it's still a small knit community, I feel like, that you do have sections of fans that are chanting, that are making banners. And I do like that. Like, I like that sport, like, or MLS specifically, is starting that.
Yeah.
I hope it translates over to other ones. I just think the other ones are so ingrained in our culture. And I think this is ultimately what it comes down to, is just a culture thing.
Yeah.
Where the NFL and NBA, it's so ingrained in how we watch the game, right? Like the defense chants, right? Or whatever the case may be. I don't think that's going to change unless there is a complete reconstruction of the association. Now they are trying to do things a little bit differently, which I like. For example, the NBA is trying to do an in-season tournament like the Premier League does, or like English teams do, which I love, and changing uniforms and for the tournament and things like that. The talk of relegation and things like that. Those sides of it, I wish they would bring over, because it would create more competitiveness, right? It would create something to lose almost. And I think that is something that American sports are missing.
Yeah.
But strictly talking about football, like soccer, I like what I'm seeing from the fans. And I like that with the new stadiums that they're building for each new club, they're getting bigger and they have their own sense of atmosphere. And I love that. And they're modeled after, they're not modeled like normal stadiums, like a football stadium. They're modeled in a square aspect, like they are over there. I think we're taking a good combination of what they already have over there culturally and making it our own, while
Yeah.
also showing respect to what they have created over there in the UK, personally.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think so. Everyone, I asked this question to more than a few people, and I kind of get the response that, like, for the most part, it's like, yeah, I think we'll get there. I'm in agreement with you. I don't think we'll ever mimic what exists over there. I think at the end
Yeah.
of the day, but it's not meant to be mimicked. I think if you were to go to, South America, for example, right, go attend Boca Juniors versus River Plate,
Oh,
you're gonna hear chanting, but it's probably the most aggressive, violent, loud chanting you've ever heard in your life. I feel like in the
right.
UK, it's like, we're one group holistically together on the same mission. Whereas like in South America or other parts of the world, it's meant to be used as a weapon. And it's different. Every culture, every country, every part of the world, it's not meant to look and feel the same. It's meant to be representative of the people and who live in that part of the world. And so
Exactly. Right.
America will figure out what its soccer culture is going to look like long term. I think 2026 and that World Cup's going to be massive for that.
Yeah.
But it would be great, right, if like people came from all over the world and were able to experience something that was unique to us. I don't know what that'll look like, but I agree with you. I don't think it'll mimic what exists overseas.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point. Like, I think the fact that every place is different is what makes it the beautiful game. It
Hmm.
it is so it's its differences are what makes it so unique,
Yeah.
right? Like, and the fact that it's growing so much and so popular everywhere. It's not like, for example, just look at basketball. Like, it's huge here and it's huge in Europe, and you don't really hear about it anywhere else. Like, I mean, people obviously play it, but football is huge everywhere. Like, there's fans all over the world for every team, and it's just so much bigger than people realize. And I think the US now, like you said, it's in its infancy. It's waking up to that. Like, fans are actually realizing, wait, this is a sport that you can actually love. You can be romantic with, and it's okay. That's fine. Like, it's not, you're not weird if you're like in love with a team. You don't have to be like, yeah, like, this is my team, they suck. Like, you can be in love with, and that's fine. And I love that. Every sport has a different way to support the team. And that's what it's all about, man. That's why we follow the sport.
It's why we create content. It's why we do all the
Exactly.
things that we do, man. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it. And look, I think one thing you mentioned before too, because I think Americans are catching on to this, right? Especially after shows like the Wrexham and Wrexham FC and everything that they're
Oh,
going
yeah.
through with their owners, right? All the publicity that they've received for their American owners jumping into a game they didn't even fully understand. They just understood that the model is exciting, and it's exciting in a way that American sports has never really experienced before. So and of course they have the fun, so they were willing to kind of just jump right in and be a part of it, immerse themselves as much as they possibly can. um with pro rel, right, with promotion relegation, I don't know if that'll ever come to the States. I think there's a lot of reasons why, the biggest one I think being that club owners will get in the way. The When you hear about club owners spending, I don't know what the San Diego expansion was, like 500 million, on a new club that will come in 2025. I when I hear that, it's like I don't expect that owner to respond well to a situation where they could be relegated from the top division after investing half a
Right.
billion dollars, right?
Right, and
Um,
there's obviously rules in place that prevent that.
exactly.
And so that's kind of what I was going at with like the
Hmm.
reconstruction. But I completely agree with you. Money talks, and it's always going to. Like these owners aren't going to let it happen. All right, just like they're trying to do that Super League. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we know why. Now the difference is it's opposite. Like if we tried to make relegation a thing, the owners wouldn't let it happen. But on the other hand, they're trying to make the Super League a thing. The fans aren't going to let it happen.
yeah.
So it's switched over there. So the fans, I feel like, have more power over there to a certain extent.
They do.
Yeah.
They do, 100%. And you hear it everywhere. Look at all the protests that the Super League actually produced, right? Every
Oh
single
yeah.
club was up in arms, ready to completely almost devoid the club of revenue by not attending the games, not buying tickets, not buying merch. And you
Crazy.
know they carry an immense amount of power. I think with here in the States that doesn't exist yet, but the owners carry so much power. And
Right.
so for that reason, I think there has to be a league here stateside that's not scared to test the model. It could be like, you know, a USL, it could be NISA, one of these smaller grassroots leagues that doesn't have a ton of visibility, that doesn't have a ton to lose from the
Sure.
ownership perspective, and see if there's a way that they can prove out some form, a hybrid model or some form of promotion relegation. Just because I think at some stage, if we want Major League Soccer to hit that next level, I just think, and soccer in general, right? Just even getting like the casual NFL fan or the casual NBA fan to pay attention, right? To be like, hey, it's not just, you know, high intensity games like what we saw in the World Cup final between Argentina and France, right? That happens all the time. You never just really hear about it. Some of those games happen at the end of the season between teams that are at the bottom of the table because they're fighting for scraps. They're fighting to stay
Exactly.
alive. And
Right.
if you're not in the know, you know, you would never really hear about it. Whereas here in MLS, you know, I say this all the time as a joke, nobody's watching Colorado Rapids and Minnesota United FC duke it out in October to just remain in the same spots that they're in, right? Like
Yeah.
that no one really cares about a game in October unless you're what most people consider to be like an MLS sicko, right? Someone who's just, you know, locked into the growth of this league, is watching every single game, and those are probably those ultra diehards. But
Sure.
outside of that, I think pro rel could do this country a lot of good, but it has to be a balancing act. There has to be a version of it that makes sense for both the owners and the fans. I guess we'll see if it ever actually happens. I'm not sure.
Right, and you basically said it is that some lower level side where the owners don't have or league where the owners don't have as much control. I mean, hell, they if you think about it, they could try it out at like the school level, like the
Yeah.
state level, where like
Hmm.
different leagues based on size. Like I know there's like A1, A2, A3, all that. Like
Yep.
you could try it that way. You get relegated to the. I mean, I don't know. There's just ways to think about it without upsetting the elites, if you will. You know.
Yeah, yeah, grassroots. It's perfect testing grounds for that, 100%, man.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see how this all kind of pans out and grows. I think you know, for when it comes to your journey, though, respectively, man, there's a lot of value that I think anybody can really pull from this episode. I'm really curious, man, because you now are deeper into this game. I know we're kind of running low on time here, so I'll try to keep this.
Oh,
I think
you're
there's going to
good.
be
You're
a ton
good.
of ways for you to answer it, but you're deeper into this game now than you've ever been. You're creating content, coming off of a great run of a few seasons for Liverpool. There's a ton of excitement on the horizon, but you're still stateside here. And of course, right, you have all these life things coming up now. But I imagine you're not going to drop the content game. You're going to keep that going.
Right.
So I guess really, I wanted to kind of, I imagine there's somebody watching, wondering how the hell you're making all this work. Um, and I kind of curious myself, man, is there any advice that you would give to the person who has a million things going on, is deep into this game? They're trying to make everything kind of push aside for the weekends to watch all the matches,
Sure.
and they have a ton of ideas for where they could go with even content, let's say, and they want to get much deeper than they are now, but they've got a million things going on. Is there I know you're a busy guy. Is there any advice you would give to that person who's tuning into this episode right now?
The best piece of advice, and it sounds like cliche and harsh, but it is the truth. there has to be a certain level of sacrifice. So someone who is busy, even if all of those things that you're busy with matter, something has to come down in terms of your commitment, whether it's going to the gym, playing video games, whatever the case may be. Something has to take a back seat. Luckily, as you grow, you're able to adapt. Humans are very good at adapting to what's going on around them to survive. It's essentially a survival mechanism where you figure out how you need to do something. So, for example, for me, when I first started, it was one piece of content a week. And then obviously the news videos, and you don't want to overcommit yourself. So you're making like one every other day, so on and so forth. Right now, what's working for me, because like you said, I'm very busy and I know you are as well. There's a technique called batch making content where you pay attention throughout the week and you figure out what you want to make videos about. And then you make multiple videos in one sitting. You become more efficient with your time. Whereas I think back to when I first started, it would take me 2 hours to make one video. Now I can make 3 videos in an hour. And that just comes with time. So you have to stay consistent. We talked about that, Jose. But I think the big thing is, if you want to get into it, if you want to lose yourself in it, you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to sacrifice something else that you're lost in order for it to work. And it's unfortunate, but that's how everything is, man. If you
Yeah.
want a good job, you have to lose yourself in that job. You might have to move. You might, whatever the case may be, you might have to go back to school. There's always something you have to do if you want something.
I
So,
agree.
and that's just good life advice for you right there. But
100%, bro.
yeah,
100%. I agree wholeheartedly. I think prioritization is massive, but you can't get away from sacrifice. If it was easy, right? If it was easy to get to 10,000 subscribers like you have, everybody would be doing it, right? But it's
exactly.
not. It takes a lot of work, a lot of consistency, and ultimately compromise. At some point, you're going to have to drop something that at one point in your life took up a good part of your day that maybe you just didn't really have to, because you want this other thing to take up more of your day. That's how it all works, man. It's a balancing act. I
Right,
think
and
you're
I'm
doing.
not, dude. I'm so small compared to what other people have accomplished on YouTube. And for me, my advice is probably not even the finished advice. Like, this is just what I have right now. I understand where I'm at. So I don't want anyone to think it's coming from a place of like I know it all, because I don't.
Yeah.
But from everyone that's mentored me on YouTube, everything that I'm saying is exactly what they've told me. So you learn from those around you, and you obviously learn from yourself. So you know yourself, do what you do best, and do it consistently, and do it wholeheartedly. That's it.
Love it, bro. I love it, man. Well, look, I think that's fantastic advice. I don't want to add anything more to it. I think that's probably perfect as it is. I think it's great. I do want to introduce one more topic before we call it wraps for the show, dude. Crazy year for Liverpool in general. Probably the most up and down season Liverpool's had in a long time.
Crazy.
After 3 or 4 years of just sheer dominance, it's
Yeah.
I feel like the wheels kind of came off, and energy was maybe a little bit low this season, tired legs, no major transfers to really kind of speak up to help the team that's been dominating for so long. And so now you enter what I feel is a very critical season. I think Liverpool, with the transfer window about to open up, is probably, and already making moves with Alexis McAllister, but
Right.
I wanted to get your take on just what Liverpool fans, especially stateside Liverpool fans, can expect in this coming season, right? I think a lot of fans from the noise I hear on Twitter or anything else, right? You miss out on Jude Bellingham because he wants to go to Real Madrid, and that's fine. But you sign Alexis McAllister. I mean, dude, how's this summer going to be for you guys? Do you have any predictions for what the 2023-2024 season's going to produce? Are we going to see the Liverpool of yesteryear and really the last few seasons?
It's a good question. This past season was rough on us, of course. I approach Liverpool a little bit differently, more so as like a kind of optimist, middle of the ground, looking at both sides thing. So in terms of transfers, there's no question that we need bodies in midfield and we need quality in midfield, just based on the last 3 years. It's not because I don't think the players we currently have can't get the job done. It's because of injuries. It's because of form. It's just because of literally recency bias, basically.
Yeah.
I think we can expect one or two more signings before the end of the summer. No doubt in my mind. If we don't do that, there the fans are just going to hate FSG even more than they already do. So that's number one. So, but number two, it is an off season to finish fifth under Jurgen Klopp with the talent that Liverpool have. And I think everyone understands that. What worries me is I didn't want us to lose ground on the teams that are coming up, the Arsenals, the Newcastles, teams that are now under their own rebuild, right? Arsenal did it great. It took them, it was like a 2 or 3 year rebuild and they're right back in it. Newcastle, after 1 year under Eddie Howe, amazing. I mean,
That was crazy. That was crazy.
Unbelievable. I mean, the names on that team sheet and what they were able to do, phenomenal team football. So I just want to give a shout out there. We cannot get complacent. And we also can't get old. And that's why I think a lot of the fans are pissed off. You got to get youth. You got to get legs, as you mentioned. And you have to reignite that fire, that passion, which I think Jurgen, the reason I love him so much is because he can do that no matter who we have. 1 or 2 more signings. I think one defensively, one in the midfield, and the likes of Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott coming up. I think Liverpool likely finish second or third next season, but we prioritize Europa and we go deep into Europa, man. There's no reason at all why we shouldn't be in the conversation for winning that trophy. No question at all.
I agree wholeheartedly. And like I said, I think it'd just be it's not something I think some Liverpool fans will try to take the road that some Arsenal fans, the elitist mentality where it's like, oh, we're bigger than that trophy, and that'll be the excuse for not winning it.
Yeah, I hate that.
I hate it too. I hate it. I think. Look, I'll be honest. Like, I don't. It's not the trophy that I want to win, right? I would prefer a Champions League trophy,
sure,
but a trophy's a trophy, right? Like
exactly.
We go out there, we fight for it. We're playing against other European teams who are not bad. They're very solid, very good. And at the end of the day, plenty of powerhouses slip into that competition every single year. So at the end of the day, it's massive.
It's not easy to win. Look, Barcelona, Man United, all these teams drop out of the competition. It is a tricky competition. And I think it's a more mental battle than anything. You're a big club, you drop into that tournament, you're thinking, oh, it's Europa League, we'll be all right, we'll be fine. And then this young side from Denmark comes and knocks you out of the tournament. I mean, that's how it works. And I think that's why I'm excited to watch it. Obviously, like you said, Champions League is the, epitome of European football, but Europa League's fine, man. Let's spend a year there, get the job done, go into next season.
Yeah, 100%, man. I agree wholeheartedly, dude. This was first off, this was it's a great take for this season. I have one bold take for Liverpool this season. I think Jurgen makes a move with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think he maybe decides to move him into the midfield. I think it's time. I think he's too good of like an attacking just personality on the pitch to just leave him back there at right back. And you're already making adjustments on the field to cover him when he goes up anyway. I just think push him up. I think if you could find a defender to take his position, you push him up and have him really contribute. His service is almost wasted if it's not coming in consistently on the pitch. And so I don't know. I think we saw it a little bit now this summer. I think this past game with England, Southgate moved Trent into that role.
Dude.
It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy.
Really and I agree. I think Klopp is smart enough to realize that. And towards the end of the season, he did it anyway. He was playing him in a hybrid role. We played this weird like 3-2-2-3 formation, and Trent was just a deep lying playmaker. Yeah. And really, the eye test tells it all. When you see Trent on ball in midfield, he is so much more comfortable than when you see him backtracking at right back. Yeah. It's just you can see it. And so I was very much in the camp that, he came into the side trying to get first team football. That's why he went to right back. It was available. He beat out Nathaniel Klein for it, and he earned it. I thought that was going to be his position forever. Everyone was like, he's a midfielder. He was in the midfield in the youth academies. That's where he's going to be. I was like, no, it's just not going to happen. And dude, I'm eating my words because he is a completely different player. They say this all the time over there. He's different gravy. He's different gravy in the midfield. And it's like you said, you can just see it. So it's going to be interesting how he lines up in midfield. That's what I will say. Because with Trent in midfield, you're down a player. So do you go back 3? Do you put in a whole new right back? Like, what does he do? Klopp has a big decision to make.
Yeah, big summer ahead. We're in the middle of June right now. It's only going to get bigger and better from here. So, anyway, man, Kyle, fantastic episode today, man. I'm really glad that we had you on. We got a little bit of everything, man. Predictions
Yeah.
for the season, your journey as a creator, just learning more about who you are and where your ambitions come from. All of that, man. Super. I'm just excited hearing more about it. Is there, before we go, any final shout outs, anything that you're working on now that you want to tease in terms of Nothing But Reds in the channel?
No, nothing right now. Just stay tuned for the transfer news. One thing I do want to say, Jose, is that number one, I told you this when we had first talked. Absolutely love and respect what you're doing just because you saw a void that needed to be filled and you did it. So props to you for that, working
Thank
hard
you.
for it. And I also appreciate the platform you're creating, not the interview type platform, but a platform for creators to actually open up and be genuine and honest, and I respect the hell out of that. So keep it up, man. Thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for the kind words, Kyle. I appreciate it, man. And look, guys, for anybody who stuck around to the end of the episode, we appreciate you. Okay. So if you haven't heard of Nothing But Reds before, if you're a Liverpool fan looking for a new channel to get your fill, the link, the socials, everything's going to be located down below in the description. Go check that out now. Go subscribe to Kyle. He's this close to 10K. I got a feeling
So
he's going to be at 100K before we know it. All right. So again, Kyle, my man, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. And to anyone who again stuck around to the very end, my name is Jose. That's Kyle. This is Box to Box. We'll catch you guys next time.